welcome back to my channel for a TBR because I have quite a few books I am scheduled to read in October for one reason or another, so I thought let's do a monthly TBR. It's been a long time since I've done a straight up this is what I'm reading in a month video, but there's also a few readathons, buddy reads, read-alongs, book clubs, etc. that you might like to know about happening in October, so it's also a heads up from me about all of those, as well as just a nice, like, chill, chatty, sit-down video that I've not filmed in a while. So here we are. You know what a TBR is. The first book I want to talk about though is for a book club, which I am so excited to announce, and it is for the Literature Lassies book club. Yes, if you haven't guessed by that name, I am now part of a group starting up a book club for reading Scottish literature. So this is our first book. I'll actually pop it down for a second and then tell you more about it once I've told you about the book club. But we're on Instagram. It's myself, Leanne, who's on YouTube and Instagram, Amy, who's on Instagram, and my flatmate Jill, who isn't really online but does enjoy joining us for live streams. So the plan is all of us four Scottish lassies will be reading a book over the course of 2 months, one book every 2 months, and then hosting a live stream where we discuss that book and chat about Scottish literature in general at the beginning of the following month. So this here is our read for October and November, so you've got 2 months still to read it. Don't worry if you already have your October TBR set and don't have time to squeeze this in. You've got November too, and then the live stream will be in the first week of December, either on mine or on Leanne's channel. We'll probably alternate. But if you're interested in keeping up with the book club and also getting more Scottish literature recommendations, we do have an Instagram. I'm pretty sure it's just Literature Lassies, but let me double check. Yes, it's Literature Lassies, and we literally have one post at the moment, and Leanne is in the process of designing us a logo, so that's all still to come. But we do have a post on our first read, which I am so excited for because this is a book that came out in the past couple of years, and when people talk about Scottish literature, I feel like you often just hear about, you know, Lewis Grassic Gibbon, who I do love, Robert Burns, Robert Louis Stevenson, maybe Muriel Sparks, but you know, a lot of classics, and you don't hear that much about like the contemporary Scottish literature scene, and I think there's some really interesting things coming out, so it'll be fun to check more of that out. Irving Welsh, that's another one you hear a lot about, who's more contemporary, but again, there's just like these few names that you often hear. And I'm always getting requests for recommendations of Scottish literature. And I do have a few favourites, both old and contemporary, but even myself, I don't think in the past few years I've been reading as much of Scottish literature. So I think this is going to be really fun, and we can read some old favourites of all four of ours, we can get recommendations from all of you, and we can check out some newer titles. So this is the first book, which I haven't talked about properly yet, and it's Things Bright and Beautiful by Anbara Salam, and I'll read you the blurb for anyone that's interested. When Bee Hanlon follows her preacher husband Max to a remote island in the Pacific, she soon sees that their mission will bring anything but salvation, for Advent Island is a place beyond the reaches of even her most fitful imaginings. It's not just the rats and the hordes of mosquitoes and the weevils in the powdered milk. Past the confines of their stuffy little house amidst the damp and the dust and the sweltering heat, rumours are spreading of devil chasers who roam the island on the hunt for evil spirits. And then there are the noises from the church at night. It sounds very dark, it sounds very like atmospheric and appropriate for this time of year, because I know a lot of you like me like to read a spooky book in October, and I also think it would sort of probably categorise as literary fiction. The author herself, Anbara Salam, is half Scottish and half Palestinian, so that's what pops her into this category. Even though the book isn't set in Scotland, they don't have to be. It's going to be really, really interesting, I think, running this book club, and I think it's something that, you know, I think we've just all had a lot of requests for. I've had a lot of questions about Scottish literature in the past. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and I'll also, as well as the other co-hosts, be sharing some of our other favourite Scottish reads over on the Instagram account if you're interested. But that is the book club if you're interested. I'm really looking forward to discussing those books with you, and also it being a kind of slow book club. But that's not actually the only book club I'm involved in. As you may very well know, I run a book club over on my Patreon, which I'm only really now catching up on because of the whole PhD. I haven't managed to quite be on top of everything in the past few months when I was finishing everything up, but now we're back in the swing of it. We've decided to read 2 more books this year before the end of the year, and the first one is The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So we've been reading this over September and October. I personally decided to save it for October because it is a spooky book. It's a retelling of a sort of classic sci-fi horror novel, and I thought it'd just be perfect for this month. I'm so excited for this though, because retellings of Dr. Moreau are some of my favourite for some reason. So The Island of Dr. Moreau is a book by H.G. Wells about a scientist called Dr. Moreau who's excommunicated from the scientific community, sent to live on this island, or at least he goes to live on this island where he starts experimenting on the local wildlife, shall we say. It's very strange and dark, and I've read retellings of it in the past which feature his daughter. It's a sort of trope of retellings, interestingly enough, to retell books with the daughter, or retell that book with the daughter as the central character, and I like that as a general trope. And I love Silvia Moreno Garcia. I love her sort of gothic novels, and this is also one of those. So I just think this is all going to come together and be an excellent read, and I'm looking forward to, again, discussing it with my patrons. My Patreon page is always linked down below for anyone's interested. Then lastly, for preordained reading in the month of October, I'm actually one of the co-hosts of the Mixtape-a-thon, and it is the Autumn Mixtape-a-thon in October from October 3rd, and it's hosted by myself, Leanne, Victoria, and again Amy. I will obviously link everyone down below with their Instagrams and their YouTubes correspondingly. The Mixtape-a-thon has had one previous round back in summer, which I was loosely involved in hosting, but I don't want to claim too much credit because, again, it was very much in that end period of my PhD and when I just submitted, so like my participation was limited, and I'm really excited for this round because I've been able to be much more on top of it. I'm going to manage to make it to all the live streams. There'll probably be a live stream over on my channel which you'll get a date for soon, and I've been sharing my recommendations with everybody else over on Instagram, etc. I also made the playlist, so if you're looking for an autumnal playlist, I made us one, both with my own picks as well as suggestions from the group, and I am going to add some more of all of your suggestions that we've received on Instagram, so I'll link that down below. But I have a few books that I plan to read for that week, and I may even vlog it. If you'd be interested in that, let me know. First up, we have The Woman in the Purple Skirt by Natsuko Nomura. So I'm actually buddy reading this with Leanne and Victoria because we all purchased it at the same time, and we've been meaning to read it together. Plus, for the autumn prompts, there is a read a translated book, which this is, so it's going to be absolutely perfect. It sounds like a kind of like surreal mystery. I don't know if it would be described as a thriller. I think it's just going to be more weird and surreal about a woman who's being watched by a stranger, but you have no idea why. I don't know if she knows why, I don't know if she's aware of it, but it's about this strange going on and what is going on behind it. I don't really know more than that. It's not a blurb or a book that gives much away just based on the cover, so I'm looking forward to giving it a shot. I am also hoping to read The Daughter of Dr. Moreau for that readathon because it has nature on the cover, so it fulfills that prompt. I also plan on reading some of my comic books and kids books because I am just thoroughly in the mood for comic books at the moment. It's what I've been craving, it's what I've been reading a lot of, and for one of the prompts we have read a witchy book, so I want to read the first volume of Spell on Wheels. I read the first few pages of this, or I don't think I've made it past the first issue, but I really enjoyed what I read, so I thought I'll save it and read the rest of it during the readathon since it'll perfectly fit into that theme. It's about a coven of 3 witches, contemporary witches with magical powers, and at the very beginning their home is broken into and a load of their magical artifacts and like spell casting bits and bobs get stolen, and they're trying to seek them out and find out who stole them from them. The illustrations are also stunning, like look at that. I love anything like witchy and about like strong women in a like coven supporting one another, so that's really cool, and I'm looking forward to that. But it's not the only comic book on this list, we have some more. We also have Chew Volume 3, so I've obviously read volumes 1 and 2. This is a detective, slightly supernatural comic book series about Detective Chew, who has a very special power. Basically, whatever he eats, he can see history of. So that would apply to animals too, but in his line of work he often ends up eating bits of humans in order to figure out how they were murdered, which is really interesting. It's also set in a world where chicken is banned because of some sort of like infection that ran rampant through chicken. So there's this whole industry or overseer of illegal chicken goods, and there's what seems to be like overarching like political conspiracies, which is fun. Then we have another first in a series, which is Zodiac Star Force by the Power of Astra, which I'm so excited to read because this looks like a sort of cute superhero-esque comic book series. Like, it's giving She-Ra, it's giving Card Captors, it's giving a lot of that kind of vibe, even though I haven't read it, so I can't wholly vouch for that. That's what the illustrations look like inside, but I've been meaning to read it for a while and it just looks like a lot of fun. They're an elite group of teenage girls with magic powers who've sworn to protect our planet against dark creatures. You know what it's also giving me? It's giving me like Winx and Totally Spies, that kind of thing. On the topic of card captors though, I actually plan on reading some card captors. I've been craving getting back into card captors. During the pandemic I started a reread of the Card Captors manga series, but haven't carried on with it, so have picked up some of the more recent omnibus bind up editions, and this is volume 3 and I want to read this. Basically, I've just been thinking about it a lot and really want to go back and read it. This is probably my all-time favourite manga series. No, it's tied 3 ways between Card Captors, Inuyasha and Fruits Basket, I think. But I love this one. This is the one that like got me into manga. I loved the anime when I was a kid. And I'm looking forward to diving back into my reread. It's about a young girl called Sakura who unleashes these magical cards called the Cloud cards, which are full of magical beings, and she basically has to like go and find and bring them all back to the Cloud deck in order to restore order. And there's all this magic, there's like cute little creatures, and it's a lot of fun. One more comic book and then we'll be done with that subgenre, which is the Tea Dragon Festival by Kay O'Neill. So this is the sequel to the Tea Dragon Society, which I have read. I've actually read twice, so I recently reread it in preparation for reading the Tea Dragon Festival because it felt like it had been quite a long time. It had been quite a few years since I read volume 1 and couldn't quite remember it, so I decided to reread that. Again, adored it. It was still a 5-star. Like, it was just as good on a reread, so I'm very excited to read the sequel. It's also thicker, which is fun. And this is set in a world where there are these tea dragons, and these dragons grow tea leaves from their heads, so like chamomile or rooibos, or I've forgotten all of their tea, peppermint. And when you like trim their leaves and take care of the dragon and then drink the tea from the leaves, you experience all these magical moments and memories, and it's really sweet. It's just lovely. It's suitable for children and adults, and the illustrations are beautiful. Like, look at these. Love Kay O'Neill's illustration style. Now, on the topic of suitable for children, we actually have a children's book. So this is the latest series in Owen Davies' animal picture book. So this is Passionate About Penguins, and he has written and illustrated a whole series in this line published by Flying Eye, which include Fanatical About Frogs, Bonkers About Beetles, and those kind of titles, which I love. I have learned so much about animals from these books. They are genuinely such good primers on a type of animal. There's a lot of information packed into these pages. Do not underestimate the power of a children's book to educate you on a topic that you maybe aren't that familiar with. And when I was a kid, children's books on animals were my favourite genre. Like, my books on reptiles and insects I had as a kid were my absolute favourites. So I'm just like going back to those roots and reading this series and learning about animals and really enjoying myself. So yeah, love the illustrations, love the information, suitable for, again, children and adults. Then last but not least, we have a non-fiction title, which is Whatever Next on Adult Adoptee Identities, and this is by a few different authors, all of whom are adoptees. It's published by 404 Inc. and it's part of their 404 Inklings series. So they do this series of Inklings, which are like short ideas, like short little discussions on topics, and this is the third one I've purchased, and I've read the other 2 I've purchased and loved both. Like, they've both being 5-star books. I genuinely think this is a phenomenal series and I can't wait to make my way through all of them. The previous books I read in this series include one on the TV show Schitt's Creek and one on being a trans man in the 21st century, both of which were fantastic. So I decided I would check this one out because honestly I have literally no idea what the experiences are of adoptees in this day and age, and I think it would be really interesting to hear from them firsthand, have a own voices account and hear a discussion of the adoption industry. Like, I really don't know much about it, so I think it'll be very educational and interesting, and that's what I like about these series. They're little digestible discussions of topics that I might never have thought to pick up before. So yeah, those are all the books on my TBR though. Maybe I'll read more, maybe I'll read less, but I think I've picked a manageable amount given that quite a few of those are comic books and kids books. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm really enjoying getting more reading done and being able to relax and enjoy myself. Although I will say in October I do have my Viva, so that may interfere somewhat at some point, but I'm still very, very excited to be free generally of writing my thesis in the larger sense and able to enjoy my life a little bit more. So that is what I'm going to be reading, and I hope you will join me for some of those like book clubs and buddy reads and readathons if you're interested. Everything will be linked down below, but until next time, happy reading and I'll see you again soon. Bye everyone.